Stanley Kubrick was a visual director. Doesn't matter if you watch his early work like Lolita or Paths of Glory, or his final two movies, Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut. There will always be a handful of images that stay stuck in your brain. Some you probably prefer wouldn't be. The Shining is no exception. Some of the most iconic shots in film history come from Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's novel. But when I first watched it many years ago, there was one shot that stood above the rest. There is something uniquely jarring about seeing someone so full of passion, anger, and evil so suddenly killed by the opposite force. It's like someone dumped a pile of snow in a campfire. In a single jump cut, one of the great villains of cinema is snuffed out, turned to a pillar of salt. In a way, it's the perfect ending for Jack Torrance. As we see in the famous final shot that comes just after, Jack becomes a permanent part of Overlook. As Kubrick has said, the ending suggests an evil reincarnation cycle. And the bottom of hell, according to Dante, is not fire, it's ice. The light is so far away you can't even begin to find a pathway out. So the question becomes, how did Jack end up in this regrettable situation? The supernatural plays a part. It directs him towards evil, it advocates for evil, it opens the door for him, literally and figuratively. But it would be going too far to say that Jack is possessed by the dark spirit that rules Overlook. Jack becomes a caretaker because he is uniquely flawed and vulnerable to the temptations of the hotel. So in this video, we're going to look at what these flaws are and how they eventually sent Jack to the depths of the abyss, because we do not want to follow him. Kubrick once said about Jack, he comes to the hotel psychologically prepared to do its murderous bidding. This is evidenced by how quickly Jack seems to break at Overlook. There is only 10 minutes of screen time between the family being left alone at the hotel and Jack staring out the window. But even before he gets the job, there is something clearly off with Jack. Whenever he interacts with someone else, whether it be hotel management or his own family, there is a palpable conceit, like he thinks he's too good to be lending his time and attention to them. Jack Torrance is a teacher, but he has severe delusions of grandeur. He thinks the only thing standing between him and becoming F. Scott Fitzgerald is time and silence. So he declares himself a writer. Teaching is just a side gig.
I'm outlining a new writing project, and 5 months of peace is just what I want.
He seems like the type of person who would ignore everyone he once knew if he did make it big. Wendy and Danny are accessories of a life he did not want to have, and he treats them accordingly. Is it good for Danny to be isolated in a hotel for months? Of course not. Does Jack care? Not even a little bit. He may care for Danny more than he cares for Wendy, but his own ambitions and fantasies are paramount. That is what the hotel exploits more than anything else. It wants him to brood on his failures. It wants his resentment to fester and intensify. That is the poison it pours in his drink. My wife is the problem. She'll never let me forget the time I accidentally hurt my son. My wife is the problem. She'll never give me the space to write my masterpiece. It invites the idea, what would my life be like if she were out of the picture? The tragedy is that Wendy really would do anything for Jack. She is constantly trying to make his life better at Overlook. It's actually really sad. Shelley Duvall nails this aspect of the character. There is a desperation to her, fragileness. She knows things are not going well in their marriage, but she will do anything to make it better, including leaving her life to live isolated in a hotel for 6 months because Jack wants to. But sadly, the more submissive she is, the more he disdains her. Their relationship was cracking long before Overlook, and it finally shatters after Danny is attacked in room 237. Wendy, being a normal, responsible mother, tells Jack, "We gotta get him out of here. Something really bad is happening." And Jack does not take kindly to this suggestion.
It is so fucking typical of you to create a problem like this when I finally have a chance to accomplish something, when I am really into my work.
He closes the tirade by telling his wife, "I've let you F up my life so far, but you are not going to F this up." So at this point, Jack's contempt for Wendy reaches a new height. Just when I think I'm out, she drags me back in, back to the classroom, back to irrelevance. And then to defy Wendy in his bitterness, he returns to the bar for a drink. This is where the hotel goes for the kill. Drinks are on the house now. Jack is a VIP. And then Grady enters the picture, the murderous caretaker whose slain family Danny has become well acquainted with. Grady appeals to Jack's pride. Your son has a gift, but he's using it against your will. And naturally, Jack blames Wendy for Danny's supposed disrespect. So Grady offers some advice.
And when my wife tried to prevent me from doing my duty, I corrected her.
We all know what comes next. Jack takes the advice, and we get a couple of the most famous scenes in film history. And during the staircase scene, he berates Wendy for thinking about Danny's health. He says, "What about me? Why aren't you thinking about my responsibilities and my future?" The sense of being trapped is at the heart of The Shining, whether it be the hotel which is snowed in with no escape, or the maze that ends Jack's promising writing career. It's ironic because Jack takes the job believing it to be his pathway to freedom. Freedom from his teaching duties, freedom from his small home where he couldn't concentrate, and if things go well, freedom from the unsatisfying life he lives. But all of that is pure illusion. What Jack is really enslaved by is his own appetites. Alcohol, sex, prestige, power. His deep desire for these things prevents him from recognizing the good parts of his life. He has a job, he has a loving wife, he has a son. Jack calls that an effed up life because he wants more, and he feels he deserves more. The evil at Overlook destroys Jack by exploiting that mindset. It tells him that correcting his family will remove the handcuffs, when in reality it only tightens them further. Most of us, ideally all of us, will not become axe murderers. It is statistically improbable. But the violence grows out of his more common flaws, which we all deal with: resentment, pride, jealousy, and a lack of self-control. So how do we fight those forces? Well, we need to be introspective enough to realize when they're taking control. We need to have trustworthy people around us to cover our blind spots. We need to have gratitude even when our lives are not where we want them to be. Of course, we should all strive for more. Jack pursuing his dreams was not the problem. Blaming others for his failure to reach them was the problem, as was elevating his own ambitions above all else. It's not a great age for gratitude. There are so many ways now to compare ourselves to others. It's very easy to be consumed by regret for what we have not achieved. But gratitude is a path of freedom, as hard as it is to find at times. And if Jack would have found it, perhaps he could have avoided a permanent stay at the Overlook Hotel.